Containers Inc. Patricia, who grew up in Berbice, has now cemented herself as a CEO and a phenomenal woman in business. You would have the entire interview right after this. Welcome to another edition of Abby's Power Lunch. We're here today with the incredible Miss Patricia Bacchus. I am excited to be here for this interview because I believe this is long overdue. A meeting and a girl chat with you is so long overdue. So thank you for agreeing to come on the show today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure being here. I've been following the development of this show since you started. Stalking you a little bit on social media. So I am as excited as you are to be here. It is overdue. We've interfaced bits and pieces at different events, but have never really sat together. So.
Exactly, and that was what I was saying when choosing the women that I wanted to interview. I see you guys on social media and I see all that you're doing, but I've never had the opportunity to sit down and to really get to know you. And I believe today we'll start the ball rolling on that.
Great.
Okay. So like I always do with all the interviews, I try to get to know the woman behind all the accolades. And so today I really wanted to get to know who you are. Tell us a little bit about Patricia Bacchus growing up.
The person. Okay. It's a good place to start. I am Barbician, proudly. So
country girl.
Yes, country girl. So I grew up in New Amsterdam. Up to the age of 16, I was still there. I went to primary school and high school there. My life in Berbice was very simple. There isn't a lot to do there, especially then in the 90s. But my family were devout Catholics, and a lot of our out-of-school time was spent at church activities. The convent attached to the church, they had an orphanage there. And my grandfather was a lay minister in the church, so he would take me along to all these church-related events, to the mental asylum where he would administer communion, to the old folks' home, Dharamshala. So I grew up really nurturing and caring for others. That was my pastime activity. We would rescue all the stray dogs that we can get our hands on. Thank God the property in Berbice was sizable. So at any one time you would have like 20 dogs in the yard, nurse them back. Some of them had injuries. So that's how I grew up, and it gave me an interest in human rights. So even after I left Berbice and started studying law, my focus was always in human rights law. It's odd that I'm actually in corporate governance, corporate management, because I had never envisaged this for myself. But I think I still bring those principles forward with me.
That's what you do now. Yeah. So what got you into law itself?
Well, my father is a practicing attorney, and when school was out during Easter or the August holidays, I would go with him to court. So from, I think, about age 13, I got in the habit of putting on a little suit, these morbid dark colors, and going to court with my father. And again, while there, the things that would concern me are not necessarily the matters, but the conditions. And I would ache and go home and contemplate on the manner in which people were treated by lawyers, by police, and I think it was a natural thing for me to do, to study law. I never envisaged myself practicing law, and although I was admitted to the bar, I've never practiced. This is my 13th year in practice without having practiced. So that my father's influence to a large extent got me involved in law, and I think I appreciated the fact that it was a good foundation to have, regardless of where I wanted to venture.
Definitely. Yeah. So besides your father, who were some of the people who were very instrumental in your life as you were growing up?
Oh, my mother, such a kind woman. Um, they never really had to be strict with me. I was always a good child. So I have very fond memories growing up. All of it very pleasant. My mother's kindness, my grandfather's charity, my father's discipline, a lot of childhood friends in the church and in school, some of whom I'm still very close with. Another one did law and she was a practicing magistrate in Berbice up to last year. A friendship of 25 years. A few people still in my life, thankfully. And after I left Berbice, I was fortunate to interface with persons throughout my schooling, my lecturers, Aubrey Bishop, former Chancellor of the Judiciary, now deceased. I would consider him one of my mentors. Professor Rudy James, now deceased again, another one of my mentors. We were fortunate to have that batch of distinguished legal minds.
Yes.
And for some reason, I've always been a little teacher's pet. Maybe because I worked so hard in school, maybe they recognize it. But I was fortunate to have been mentored by great people in academia. And when I started to work, I had similar good fortunes that I interfaced with a lot of people in the business community that were nurturing and accepting. And I know there's usually this anticipation that you will be met with a lot of gender bias, being a young woman coming into business. But thankfully, the former CEO of the company for which I am now CEO, Ronald Webster, he too is deceased. For the first 8 years of my career, he was my mentor, and I interfaced with people like Dr. Yusuf Basad, Beverly Harper from Nancy McCall Group, and they've all been extremely supportive. Clifford Reese from Banks IH. So I consider myself tremendously fortunate to have had everyone involved from my formative years to now play such a significant role in my mentorship. I consider myself very lucky, if there's such a thing as luck. But
definitely. I mean, you have. I've seen your bio, I've read your bio, and the accolades are so many. And you've had the opportunity to be mentored, as you just mentioned, by people who want only dream about being mentored by. What's your secret?
There is hard work. It's not a secret, but the answer really is relentless effort. And I think people recognize it quite easily. I have not, this is not something I pursued. This all happened by chance. I came onto this company to do a brief legal attachment just before I graduated law school in 2006. I was just home waiting on results and graduation. And they were going through some financial hardships and asked me to come on board to help with the restructuring. They needed someone legal in-house. And we wrapped that up successfully in a couple of months, and then they offered me full-time employment. And I think because of my performance during those few months, the managing director at the time must have recognized some potential in me, because for the next 8 years we worked very closely and my progression in the company was rapid. My involvement and our collective efforts, I think, translated into tangible financial returns. You could have measured year by year the results of the restructuring, going from a loss position to a position of continuous profitability. And I think persons in the business community that perhaps thought that this company could not have recovered also recognize that. And so they took some interest in my professional development as well. But it's all stimulated just by very, very hard work.
I'm sure you've had, just like every other, woman who tried and have succeeded, you've had some times where, it's been frustrating.
Yes. Absolutely. And I don't think that is gender, that is gender specific.
Definitely.
I think all of us, perhaps women to a large extent in this field, but I have had those moments. I continue to have those moments. I don't think you ever really master it. There's always, as you try to learn new things and acquire new skills, you always have that moment of, can I really do this? From a legal background, I never concentrated to a large extent on mathematics and accounts and engineering and so on. Those things were so far outside of my realm of study.
Likewise.
I never thought I'd have to use any of it except maybe to count money. That's about it. But when, for instance, so I had a legal portfolio in the company, and then I was getting involved in operations little by little. And the board wanted to appoint me chief operating officer, and this is unknown to me. The discussions were being had, and the CEO was pushing me into meetings with the engineers and so on, and I was getting a little frustrated because I couldn't understand what they were discussing. And then he'd give me this thick manual and a generator or a piece of equipment to take home for the weekend, and the language you'd have to Google everything. Thank God for Google in this age, right? But it was frustrating, wondering why did I go to law school to do this, to sit and read about generators. And then when he passed away, but I embraced it. It took some time, but I embraced it. I recognized that the acquisition of knowledge can only be a benefit to my growth. And then when he died unexpectedly, I was the next in line, and I had to process the executive payroll of the company. And I hadn't before worked with Excel to such a large extent. I really had to master using Excel, because, without errors, because you're talking about people's salaries. That was another very frustrating couple of weeks. People were paid very late. I called the managers in. I said, listen, this is my first time. I'm trying to pay all of you correctly and properly. Bear with me, please. But they were understanding, and I got it done. But these things, you always encounter new things that the task seems insurmountable. But like I said, back to that relentless work and effort. Eventually, you master it with enough practice.
I think you're doing an excellent job. So kudos to you. You've studied law, and now you're the CEO of a manufacturing company. The transition to that, as you mentioned, took some time, relentless learning, and all that goes into becoming a boss. How do you manage day-to-day? What's a day-to-day like for you?
Well, first of all, I don't really see myself as a boss. I think leadership is a serving role.
Agreed.
Yeah. So it's always peculiar when people say boss. I look at them. But the day-to-day work. So since I was chief operating officer, and then unexpectedly I was appointed chief executive officer and chairperson of the board. I didn't relinquish the chief operating officer portfolio. I didn't pass it on to anyone else. I had no one else to pass it on to at that time, and I didn't think it prudent to hire, because I myself was still in training as CEO, and for me to have to train someone as CEO, it would not have been prudent at that time. This was 2014. So and for some reason I retain oversight over operations. Perhaps I enjoy it. Maybe I see the progress and don't want to relinquish that. So the first thing when I get in the morning, I check all the numbers in operations. We have I would say a sophisticated network system where daily all production numbers at all the cost centers, all the efficiency ratios are entered into the system and can be accessed by any of the managers sitting on their computers. So that's the first thing I go to. I check the performance against what was planned, against budget numbers and so on. And then I start asking the questions, emailing the managers, emailing the supervisors, WhatsApping them what happened last night. Once I get operations out of the way, then I can spend some time on administration, human resources, check on those things with the managers, maintenance. And then there are periods, like right now we just completed our financial audit. We are finalizing audited reports, taking it to the board for approval, to publish our annual report, and to host shareholders meeting. That period is from maybe February till the end of April every year. So during that period, a lot of emphasis is on corporate work, governance, corporate writing, financials, Excel. And then there are periods where production is in peak, like October, November, December, where we're making packaging for all the other manufacturers to put their products out for Christmas. And so then the emphasis is on ensuring machine reliability with the engineers, ensuring that production efficiencies are met, delivery dates are met, targets are met. And then there are periods, slow production periods, like early in the year, where we go into intense maintenance activities, which is when my emphasis shifts to the engineers and so on. After 14, 13 years, I think I've gotten the hang of it. But you know what? On a daily basis, you never really know what to expect. Something would go offline in the factory that you can't get up on unless you bring in some spare part from somewhere in Europe, and you have to work with all the logistics. So there really never is a dull moment. When things are running too smoothly, I get anxiety.
I can imagine. So I'm here and I'm thinking that stepping into your shoes, I would panic. And it would probably all go over my head. So I'm trying to figure out how.
No, it would not. Out of necessity, you know what? You get the hang of it.
How do you create a balance? So where's the balance between stepping into work and then I'm sure your personal life is there? Where do you get the balance?
Well, I try to ensure that I complete everything I have to complete before I leave the office. I do not like to take work home with me. I believe in a strict separation of the two. So I'm I attempt to be extremely efficient during the day. It's only in emergency situations that I would take work home with me, but I'm always accessible via email and so on to handle emergencies as they arise. But for the large part, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I tune out of office matters and just try to relax. I go to the gym in the evenings, and that helps tremendously with shedding the stress of the day. I do some kickboxing, and by the time I'm home, you just want to relax. I have a little dog. It takes a lot of time. But I think I've been able to. I'm a little on the introverted side, so that energy is not spent socializing too much. I prefer to read and spend time very quietly and cook and so on. It's not hard striking a balance. I don't spread myself too thin. I used to spread myself very thin. I was involved with this state board and that state board, sitting on 4 or 5 boards at one time, meeting to meeting to meeting. But 2014, 15, 16, I started to incrementally drop off the appointments. So now it's manageable.
I can't see you being an introvert, but I've learned something.
A certifiably so tested introversion.
I've learned something new here today. So what we do, we take a break and then we return. I want to know more about how you interact, you manage your employees and all the social things in terms of your social footprint of your company that you guys have going on. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. We're here with Patricia Bacchus, the CEO of Caribbean Containers Limited. It's Limited or Inc.
Yes.
I hope that you've enjoyed the interview so far. Patricia's been telling us all about her company and her day-to-day activities with the company. And I'm always curious when women who are leading large companies, I'm just curious to know how they manage to interact with the staff, both male and female, because I know the dynamics can be quite different.
So I'd start on the premise that I don't recognize those dynamics. I refuse to recognize those dynamics. I approach things on the merit of what you bring to the table. We have women in manufacturing working at machine lines. We have them in quality management, it's a room full of managers or a room full of staff. That's it. Perhaps others in the room don't feel the same way, but I refuse to recognize that. Because you're coming here to work on on matters of principle and matters of merit. That's it. The space cannot facilitate anything outside of that. And I found it, I've not had bad experiences. I think the secret resides in competence. If you understand the language you're speaking, from engineers to production staff, quality staff, account, sales, and you can sufficiently engage them in their language, you earn their respect. It's just to ensure that no one gets the feeling that you're bluffing, that you really inherently know what you're doing and what you're dealing with, and you can engage them sensibly on it. And you earn their respect. I don't have a pyramid style management approach. I have an open door policy. From the janitorial staff to porters can come into my office freely and discuss with me any matter that is concerning them. You don't have to exhaust. Of course, there are systems in place, and I wouldn't deal with something in isolation from line management and human resources. But I want always strive to ensure that staff members know that I am accessible. So I tend to have general meetings. I don't manage necessarily through the chain of command. We do have our weekly management meetings, but if I feel that there are issues that are dire enough for me to engage directly with staff, I call a wider forum where we have supervisors and machine operators and their managers all together to ensure that the information that I'm putting out there isn't filtered before it gets to them, that we're all on the same page. But that's on a case-by-case basis, depending on what we're dealing with at the time. And I find that approach works. It has certainly yielded better outcomes for CCI. And the fact that you are accessible by members of staff, it allows you to maintain a certain level of integrity within management in terms of instructions and information. Because easily, if something is distorted, it can be corrected. Yeah. So that has worked. I've not had issues with managing the staff. We have over 100 members of staff, male and female, but it has not been challenging.
But do you mentor anyone? Because
I do.
I don't have a large company, so I'm thinking that,
I do. I have a few within the organization. I have a few, first and foremost, women that I know I can relate to the transition difficulties into manufacturing out of an administrative field, and I ensure that I expose them to all areas of operations, that I don't assume that something is beyond their ability or not within their realm, that they're given equal opportunity for upward mobility. Young men too in the organization. I ran a little supervisory training program where I have a young lady and a young man training as supervisors in production, and they have been undergoing mentorship for the last 2 years. And they are going to be promoted substantively from the beginning of April.
Kudos to you.
So because I spend most of my time here, most of my days, and it's on the East Bank, it's far outside of Georgia, my mentoring activities tend to be confined to my location.
Understandable. Understandable. And so early in the conversation, you spoke a lot about being humanitarian and just loving people and animals and everything else.
Animals particularly, yes, I am. And I try to have those principles, like I said, follow me throughout whatever I do. And it really is just ensuring that the well-being of people, animals, whatever I interface with is promoted first and foremost. Some say I'm socially inclined. I have socialist philosophies in a capitalist world, but that is only to the extent of ensuring things like health insurance is provided to all our staff members. So things that we put in place since I got involved in 2006 and we started to restructure, and we're now able to afford things, or we're now able to afford better things since we're profitable. We have health insurance that's offered to our employees and their families, so their spouse, whether common law or married, and their children, whether adopted or otherwise, they are covered on the health insurance plan. They get their medical card and they can get credit facilities at certain hospitals and so on. It gives me peace of mind knowing that they have the peace of mind. It helps, and it manifests itself in results, because if they know that they don't have to worry about how they're getting their daughter and son's glasses before they go back to school, or their dental appointments covered, it helps. It makes them more productive when they don't have to worry. So it is not without the returns. And then we have life insurance provided at no cost to the employee, covering each of the employees, and they name a beneficiary, whether it is a parent, a child, a spouse. We have it, I think, between 2 million and 5 million Ghana dollars per staff member. We have private pension, which is outside of the NIS, and we match the employee's contribution to the pension scheme up to 7.5% of their salary. So if they choose to put 7.5%, we put 7.5% for them as well. We have accident insurance if anything is to happen to them outside of work. If they ride a motorcycle and fall down, their wages, their medical expenses, the damages will be covered. So we have a very good employee welfare program. And we've also put in place employee profit share, so that once they surpass targets in any given month, this is gross profit targets, and they get a return to them, a portion of the profit. And some months it averages 6,000 Ghana dollars per employee by 102 employees. Some months it goes up to $10,000, which is just over $1 million redistributed to staff. And I find with that, they buy into what the company is doing. They own the process as their own. They know that their efforts has a correlation to their returns. It has really worked for both the company and the employees. That outside of employment benefits and so on, we have a number of initiatives that we have put in place for social alleviation. Our sponsorship and so on does not extend to, at this time, does not extend to things like events and sporting activities and so on. We do more charitable work. So we would do things like feeding programs with some of the major churches, the Anglican Church, Catholic Church, Seventh-day Adventists. Whenever they have their feeding programs, we would contribute hampers and food stuff and so on. We do a lot in education, the nursery and primary schools and secondary schools. Within, I think it is a 4-mile radius of our location. We do something called an Adopt a Cause program with them, where we help them to paint their schools, build swings in their yards, stock their libraries. We introduced this award called an Environmental Champion Award at each of the school, where depending on the practices of the students, the student that demonstrates the most regard for environmental practices gets a bursary, trophy, prizes, and so on. So those are some of the ways we've extended ourselves outside of what we do, and in meaningful ways, where you can try to change culture and alleviate harsh conditions. That's how our corporate social responsibility program is designed, to ensure that there's a meaningful impact of what we do, not just one event and people go back to the way we were, but some way that you can impact their lives meaningfully. Yeah.
And so Caribbean Containers Inc. probably might be the happiest place to work.
Well, I don't know. People say when you work in the beverage industry, retail beverage industry, especially alcoholic beverage industry, you tend to be the happiest people. But no, I think our staff members are very contented. They are happy. They stay with us forever. I mean, we have 25, 30 years of service awards presented every year to people. When they come, they tend to stay.
And that is what I think makes a difference. When your employees are there and they're there to stay and they love what they do, they come into work every day wanting to perform, that what makes a company great. And so I thank you for the work that you've been doing with private contingent. I thank you for your investment, not just into just showing up to work, but actually learning and teaching yourself everything from the ground up. So I applaud you for that.
Well, thank you so much. It has not been without its challenges.
I can imagine.
It's been very rewarding.
I can so imagine. I always like to, when I'm interviewing, to speak to the women about. There must be someone that's sitting here looking at the show right now, and they're wondering, what, she has come from a humble beginning and she's excelled and is doing so great. What advice can she give to me? What advice can you give to the young girl that's looking at the show right now that's probably in Berbice or in Essequibo?
I hope some Berbice.
Definitely,
Well, my mantra, my life mantra, perhaps it's not gender specific, but it is to each his own, so long as no harm is done to anyone else. Essentially, you have, as a human being, the right to choose your own path, and to do what makes you happy, and to enjoy what inspires you, but in so doing, ensure that no harm is caused to another human being or any other being. So in that, I think, is the principle that you get to choose your own path. Nothing is predetermined, not based on gender, not based on age, not based on ethnicity, religion, nothing. You wake up, you have life, and you have the ability to work on securing the path that you want to take. It is really as simple as that from a matter of principle. It may not be as simple as that from a matter of practice, because there will be obstacles, you will be met with bias, obstructionists, but that same relentless work, the effort that you put in is what you can give to ensure you stay the course. No one else gets to determine what you should do or who you should be. You have that right, and the rest really is up to you. Yeah.
Thank you. To each his own.
To each his own. Yeah. To each his own. That's the least we deserve as human beings, the right to choose responsibly. So, and I think the only qualifying factor is do no harm, hurt no one. Yeah. It's worked for me, I think. Yeah.
And it's worked pretty well. So thank you. Thank you for being awesome.
Thank you for having me
here today.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too. I learned so much, and I think there's so much I could take away from this. So I definitely, from mentorship and everything, as I grow and as my company grow, I definitely will reach out to you. We'll be introverted.
I hope so. I hope we don't confine this just to this interview, but that we spend more time together.
We most certainly will. So thank you for being here today.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you guys for watching. Bye. Patricia Bacchus is a phenomenal woman in business and a true inspiration to all of us. I hope that you've been inspired by the many stories told here this past half an hour. We view this not just as another television show, but as a tool for mentoring and empowerment. Here at APL, we believe that women rightfully taking their place in business will be the successful underpinning of Caribbean economies. We're glad that you could have joined us for another half an hour of inspiration. We would like to thank our producers in Georgetown, Guyana and St. George's, Grenada. We would also like to thank the owners, managers, and staff at the Parkview Hotel on the east bank of the Marara. Join us next week for another half hour of inspiration.